Hi everybody, this is just a brief introduction to the readings that we're doing for our first week and just basically new media literacies as a whole and what we're using essentially to frame our initial ideas about literacies, and what that means. And that's what your readings are attempting to do for this week. So, what we are doing is seeing a real shift from focusing on print literacy, people as autonomous. You either can know how to read, and I'm going to teach you through phonics, whole language, whatever its perspective. I'm going to teach you to read. You're going to read as a person, you're going to learn from it, and it's a very one-on-one, individual kind of interaction. What we're finding is that literacy is actually multiple. There are many kinds of ways of being literate, and many different ways that people are asked to be literate now that they didn't used to be. And so we have to deal with that. But also, literacy is not a person interacting with text. It really is social. And so it matters who the people are reading the text. It matters what the texts are. It matters what those identities are. So there's all of this social context and identities, and all of this is working together to create literacies all of the time. And so our interactions matter, who we are matter, our social context matters. All of this is working together to create literacies, and that's where the shift is happening. And so that's what the readings are going to be really working you through and talking you through in different ways. So I'm going to give you an example of a text, a set of texts that might help to show the different kinds of literacies that G. Perry and the others for the transliteracies are talking about. So I am super interested in yoga, always have been. For the last 20 years I've been practicing yoga. I've never formally taught it, but it's always been a dream of mine to do that. It's just, life gets in the way, it doesn't happen. But I'm always really interested in it. And so there are all of these examples out there of yoga practices that I've tried in person and also online, and they involve a lot of different aspects of literacy. So I'm just going to give you an example of that. So Yoga with Adrienne is a free resource that's on YouTube. I found it recently. I think that she is a great teacher, especially if you're a beginning student. It would be a great resource. But she's doing a campaign right now called True 30-Day Yoga Journey. And even the title, the fact that it's not a challenge, most of these yoga things that happen in January are challenges. They go along with this larger fitness craze that people have with their New Year's resolutions and all the things that we do around New Year's, right? Again, we're already to social. It's who you are and the kind of person who wants to make a change and to be better, and needs to do that and needs to have a challenge versus a journey, or a journey versus a challenge in this case. So she has renamed that in order to frame it differently, to create a particular kind of identity in the beginning, a particular way of engaging with this process. I'm not judging it one way or another. I'm just saying that the choice of words, even from the beginning, is important, right? And so also all of her videos every single day has a different keyword, motive, trust, strength, floor, high, kindle, whatever the case is. And so you already are in a mindset as a viewer, as a participant, engaging with this particular way of being. And so if you click on the video,
hello,
here,
and welcome to
turn this
True.
off.
It's day 2.
So you see the videos are basically yoga videos in her home with her dog. She says she wants to have a particular kind of way of being, so she includes her house and her dog and whatever. So they're pretty traditional in that sense of having a very, a yoga space. But what's interesting about that, when we start thinking about what it means in terms of literacies, are one, the language, using the actual vocabulary of yoga as a teaching tool. You do learn the vocabulary of yoga, as well as multimodally you move your body. and you are moving your body in particular formations and in particular ways in response to what they're called, in response to the flow, in response to the expectations of what is happening within that experience, right? That practice, the literacy event of the yoga class, right? So you are literally moving your body, but you're also watching something. So you're seeing something, images are moving in front of you, you're hearing her instructions as you're moving through the postures. But there's also particular kinds of identity work happening in that you are learning from someone who is a trained yoga teacher who has this reputation on YouTube, online. She's an actress, so that might play into the way that she is perceived as a yoga instructor, or maybe not, but it's just part of how her identity is made up. But even the people who are participating are considered yogis, right? They are people who are using this particular kind of exercise or way of being or lifestyle or whatever you want to take from it, depending on how you define that, what that means to be a yogi, right? And a particular kind of yogi who will study something online, right, is different than someone who will only take yoga classes or who will never take yoga classes, right? So there's all of these ways of being that are happening here, even just within this one instantiation of a yoga class, right? There's all these literacy practices that are happening. You're having big D discourse, little D discourse happening that Jim G talks about. You're having mobility, the different kinds of mobilities that are happening with transliteracies that you'll read about. So there are lots going on, even in this one example. Or another example for teachers in the room would be Yoga Foster. Yoga Foster is a company that creates training and tutorials and curriculum that you can use as a teacher that you bring into your own classroom. And it uses the Big D discourse of teaching as its framework. It's not using yoga. It does use yoga terms, and it teaches you all of the yoga things to be a yogi and to practice and to be a teacher to some extent of yoga. But it frames it all within the discourse of teacher talk and what teachers care about. So this is interesting, and you see the shift of perspectives and what's happening here. So you'll see that you have curriculum, you'll have an overview, you'll have different classes, it explains everything for you, and then it has playlists, it has curriculum, overviews, lectures. So you have all of these things that are part of yoga practice, but yoga practice within a particular social setting. You even have the material practices. You can get yoga mats. You have handouts. You have playlists, music playlists, which goes to multimodality as well. So there are all those things that they talk about in your transliteracies article are all happening here as well. So what I want you to take away from this just little example is just that there's a lot happening when it comes to literacies, and you can find that everywhere. You find it in our everyday lives and in what we're doing. So there are ways that you can really think through these ideas that we're studying in class in your own context. And I really encourage you to start doing that. That's largely what the blog posts are for, is to really help you to engage with these ideas in a way that is really relevant to you in your professional life largely, but it could also be your personal life as well. So think about that as you're reading the readings. The first two readings, Jim G is very approachable. I actually took him for 80 hours before I was like, okay, that's good. I think I know what you're saying, and he's even done new stuff since then. The Perry article is a good overview of literacy practices and what literacy events are, especially the section that I gave you the page numbers for. And then transliteracies, that article is new, and it's really bringing everything together. It's a difficult piece, so don't feel discouraged if you don't get it all right away. That's a piece that we will come back to. It requires some experience and some knowledge in theory in literacies to really get it, but I want you to get a sense of it. So I want you to try, in other words, to make sense of what that is trying to tell you and to really think through the complexities of literacies. And so that's what our readings are for this week. And hopefully this example is helpful to you as you do your readings.